Hey Juanita, how are you?
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I am so relaxed after a great week off, free time, magic.
Fantastic.
So I've come back full of energy and vim and so on. So no yawning,
Wow,
okay?
look out.
No, that's right. So yes, we had a week off last week, and so coming back this week, and I thought what I'd go through this week with your permission, Juanita, is one of the books I wrote some time ago called The Gist, and very much it just focuses on the gist of dangers, strengths, opportunities, the negative things that can happen, thought starting questions in regard to getting your estate and your succession planning done. And we'll get into each of those. There's a whole number of them that I've identified, and so we can chat about each of those. And Juanita, happy to for you to give your feedback as well. But one thing I found, I started writing a series of estate planning books, did a lot of YouTube videos and so on as well some time ago. But one of the things that I found is that it's really about 95% of the population that suffer, I guess, a blissful ignorance or unawareness in regard to their estate and succession arrangements. In other words, about 95% of the population are unaware, they defer, they're uncertain, and there's a whole pile of potential grief and pain when something happens, when one of them or both mum and dad pass away. There's just going to be a whole pile of potential grief and pain. And at the other end of the scale, there's only about 5% of the population have certainty, confidence, security, fairness worked out already, 5% of that. And that's kind of the best outcome. And they're the people that, have taken the time and effort. Obviously, I've dealt with you, Juanita. I've got this all sorted. But
Absolutely.
there was kind
You're
of,
in the 5%.
that's right. But there was kind of I always felt there was kind of a missing structure between the 95% who don't have this taken care of, even where they think they might,
Mm.
and the 5% that had the best outcome. And that's where I really put together our peace of mind plan, our rural succession solutions, and so on. The 3-step process or the 9-step process to help move people from where they are to a situation of certainty, confidence, and security. So, and as part of that, I went through and I looked at what are the things that people need to identify and eliminate as part of their estate and succession planning. So I came up with what I call 12 dangers, and you've got these in front of you too, Juanita, I'm sure. So
I do indeed. And, just
we'll
thinking as you were just talking then, you're only talking about the people that have an estate plan or have documents in place, because the statistics show that there is a huge proportion, well over 50% of the population, that don't even have any wills in place, which is frightening.
more than frightening, absolutely. So going through these, one of the first things I identified, and this is one of the main reasons people just don't get this stuff sorted, is what we call the deferral dilemma, the tendency to put off taking action or even allocating any effort, I guess, towards achieving a beneficial result. So deferral, procrastination, you can call it what you like, but we see this all the time, don't we?
Yeah, we do, and I get it because going to see a lawyer about doing your wills isn't the top of everyone's fun list. To be fair, I mean, I think it's fun, but I get it. You might rather go to the pub or read a book or spend some time with your family. So, totally understandable, but definitely number one.
Yeah, and I'm trying to work out which is more exciting, going to the dentist or going and seeing your lawyer about what's going to happen when
Oh,
you pass on. So not that I want to categorize you with
at least you
dentists.
can talk to your friendly lawyer. You can't talk to your dentist.
No, that's right. You got all this stuff in your mouth and you can't say anything. So that's really the first one, is procrastination. So I've named what I did years ago was went through and named all these things so that they really had a life of their own and
Mm.
just made a whole lot of sense to people. So the deferral dilemma, procrastination, call it what you might, but that's certainly one of the greatest dangers in regard to not getting this stuff sorted. The second thing is what I call, and I'm always careful when I say this, but I've tagged this the pompous presumption, and this will make sense when I explain it a little bit more. And that's sort of an overconfidence, a superior inference that everything is already taken care of. And it's often based on the fact that you might have spent a whole lot of money with your existing professional advisors, or you're dealing with professional advisors who have a great reputation, and you're spending a whole lot of money with them. So you tend to think, okay, well, you're pompously sitting there going, yep, I've got all this taken care of. And I'm just going to, and I know you're going to come back and have a chat about this, but I'm going to tell you that, in all my years, so let's say 35 odd years in doing this, I really have never come across anyone that's got this all sorted. And I've dealt with, and Juanita, you'd be aware of this, it just astounds me the number of very, very successful people that are very wealthy, moderately wealthy, but they're dealing with, top end of town lawyers. And when I approach them about, maybe a second opinion or helping them to have a look through what they've currently got in place, I really get this attitude of, seriously, like I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z from, the big end of town. Of course, I've got it all taken care of. And the bottom line is, well, for me, 100% of the time, but let's say 99% of the time, that's not the case. And you'd find that too, wouldn't you, Juanita?
I do. And, with the, I suppose, greatest respect, dollars spent doesn't always mean quality and value, does it? So that's sort of where the problem lies. I don't want to disrespect any other lawyers.
Okay.
This advice,
I'll take this.
But certainly, the right lawyer the right advisor is not necessarily always the most expensive one. It's where the value for you lies.
Yeah, and look, I think sometimes too, maybe the clients say to the advisors or infer that they don't want to spend much money, so the level of advice isn't a high level of advice because the lawyers are thinking, okay, we've got to stick within a budget here or we'll lose a client. I'm not sure what it is, but I've just seen people with huge, important estates with lots of kids and lots of opportunities for fracturing relationships if it's not done properly. And I've just seen that by reputable lawyers who haven't played their best game, I guess, in regard to putting that together for those clients. So I guess the lesson here, without waffling on too long, is, just because you know the important people and you've spent a lot of money, please don't think that you've got it all taken care of.
The other important thing, as we've spoken about before, is not all lawyers are experts in all areas. Well, none of them are experts in all areas. So you might have a fantastic, and it's the same for accountants and other advisors. You might have an advisor who is wonderful and trusted and have a long-term relationship in one particular area, but that doesn't mean they're experienced in another area, and that's okay. That's no criticism at all, because the same can be said of me. So if you wanted, expert advice in, what's an example, in family law, family law team next door. So that's the reality.
I won't be coming to see anyone about family law. Let me tell you, I've done that. Okay, the third one is what we call the unaware squared trap, and this is actually Donald Rumsfeld, the American whatever he was for George Bush. It's the not being aware of what you're unaware of. It's the problem's not the problem. It's not knowing what the problem is. You don't know what you don't know. So, and this is one of the reasons most people don't start the whole process, isn't it? They don't know where to start.
I guess so. But as we go through the process, as we've experienced, Mark, people are often very surprised by the things that you tell them. And one example we've spoken about previously is that certain assets don't form part of your estate, or they had no idea. And so there's these sort of things that it's important to get in order. If you don't know, you don't know. So that's why you need that particular advice.
Absolutely. So, and a lot of times people think they've got everything, following on from number 2, they think they've got everything taken care of because no one's actually sat down and asked them the right questions. There's real power in having great questions asked, and sometimes those questions will uncover things that you'd never even thought of. And in fact, if you go and see an advisor and they just listen to you and just do exactly what you say you want, you've really got to question whether you've got value, because a good advisor in this area will ask you questions and probe out things. One, what's in your heart, but two, a whole lot of opportunities that you may not have even been aware of that you could take action on to protect assets and so on. So not knowing what you don't know is a very, very important part of one of the greatest dangers of estate and succession planning. Number 4 was, sorry.
Without a doubt, I was going to say, without a doubt, the questions that we would ask our clients are for a reason. So, great, happy to have a chit chat as well, but there's, specific questions that I would ask, and there's a reason why, because I'm looking for what answer you're going to give me.
Yeah, that's right. And great questions are ones that people haven't even thought of before, whether they've never heard of the opportunity. Number four in the greatest dangers that people face, I think, when they come to us, is once again is an unawareness, but it's delinquent documents. Many of your existing documents, agreements might be out of date, ineffective. You might have lost them. They might be non-existent. They might be inappropriate, out of date, whatever. So having a checklist of what documents you need and making sure, through your due diligence, making sure all your current documents are relevant, appropriate, and up to date is a really important part of the process.
Give yourself a pat on the back when you've got them all in place, but after you put them in don't put them in the drawer to gather dust next to the bed. They should be with your lawyers in custody. But definitely review those documents every 5 or so years, or on the certain trigger events like marriage, divorce, children, selling a business, buying a property. To make sure that they don't become delinquent documents.
That's right. Now, number 5, as I said earlier, I like to put names to issues to make them sound more practical. And number 5 is step sibling seepage. So what this means is these days more and more people, there's mixed marriages and so on. And I always saw, and certainly from a lot of our clients, it was important to them that whatever wealth had been generated by mum and dad in the first instance, so, mum and dad have been together for 20 years, they've raised their children, they've created a great amount of wealth between the two of them, and from either divorce or from premature death from one of the partners, there's a remarriage. And all of a sudden, there might be a remarriage to someone who's got 4 kids, 3 kids, 5 kids, whatever. And all of a sudden, the wealth that was created by mum and dad in the first instance, so whatever that number is, suddenly as time goes on, there's a danger that wealth could be divided by not only the original children that were part of the growth of those assets, but by people that have come in, children that have come in as stepchildren, and this is not against stepchildren. A lot of times after a number of years, the stepchildren are just as important and loved as the original children. So this is not against stepchildren, but it's just making sure that you've got the balance and you've got the intention right in regard to what you want to happen to the wealth that you've created in the first instance with your own blood children, so to speak.
Yeah, that.
Do you see this as something?
Summed it up beautifully there, because we're not saying don't give anything to your stepchildren. We're saying understand the balance and the flow through and who's got what rights eventually, et cetera, et cetera. So just having that understanding and that thought process and making sure that what's in place is what you want to have in place and what you want to eventuate. Yeah,
and that will change over time.
Yeah.
I mean, in the early years of a new relationship, new stepchildren coming in, the entitlement factor, and I hate using that word, but is very low. But as time goes on, that will change. So it's one of those things that really needs reviewing from time to time. But
and it's. Sorry, Mark, just also on that point, like when you've got a second marriage too, often there may be children of different ages. So just thinking through what the needs are of, there might be some older children. Here I go with my puppet hands again. There might be some older children and a younger child for a second marriage. So putting some thought into what the needs are, particularly of that younger child, perhaps compared to the older children.
Yep. Okay. An interesting area, but it's one that you really need to is the word communicate about, because it is what are we 15 minutes in, it is an issue certainly where it can be very contentious. I've been in situations speaking with a husband with a new wife and they've had a child together, and there can be, you've got to be very careful, because if the husband dies first, for example, in the new relationship, and you've got to make sure his kids are looked after as well too, because I've seen things happen where the new wife has taken all the money and looked after the child between the two of them, and the original kids have whistled Dixie, and that's just not fair at all. So, and it was no one's intention. So, you need to make sure those conversations and there's real communication around those issues. Number 6 is the business partner from hell. Now, this was born many, many, many years ago, and the question, I love this question, is, how would you like to be in business? Whoa, better wave your hand and turn the lights back on. How would you like to be in business with your partner's wife's next husband, partner, solicitor, or other well-meaning family friend? Do you want to think about that one? So let's say you're in partnership. There's 2 guys in partnership. They're both married, and your business partner, the other guy, dies. Then all of a sudden, if you haven't set all this up correctly, you're going to be in business with your partner's wife, her next partner, her solicitor, some other well-meaning friend, father-in-law, or whatever. So that's nothing against wives or all those people, but I mean, you just need to make sure that everything is set up in regard to your succession plans and in regard to your estate plan, so that whatever the contingency is and whoever dies first, the business is maintained, the other family is paid out, and everyone can get on with their lives.
Absolutely. And the way to do it, people might think that's a bit exaggerated, but it's not. It is reality. And the way to address that is through your will, through other documents as may be necessary, such as shareholder agreements or buy-sell agreements or trust deeds. So that, again, putting the right thing in place to make sure what you want to happen, both of you being business partners, happens. And also not just on death, I would add, also on incapacity of a business partner. That needs to be addressed too. Sure. So what happens if one of you get dementia, at an older age, or an accident and are incapacitated? Who runs the business then? So that's another important piece of that.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I mean, the partner that passes away, their spouse, for example, may have no skills that are relevant to the business. And I mean, if you haven't got the proper documentation in place, that partner without the skills can just sit there collecting the money and not contributing at all, because they're still a 50% shareholder in the business, and so on. So you need to be really thoughtful about making sure that if you're in partnership with anybody, same as if you're in a marriage, you're in a business relationship and so on, make sure you got your documentation right around, if anything goes wrong, that everything is taken care of, so that there's no squabbles up the other end. Number 7 is what I call the unintended trifecta. Now, you're going to be sitting there scratching your head wondering what this is all about.
I am.
I named this after the fact that I think it's really important with your estate planning specifically, that the right money ends up in the hands of the right people at the right time. So there's 3 things: the money, people, and time. So that, for example, you might have a child who's leaving a whole lot of money to a child when they're still at school, or they're still young, or they're at university, would just be an absolute catastrophe. There's the right amount of money, firstly, is making sure the right amount goes to the right people. That it goes to the right people is the second one, and it goes to them at the right time is the third one. So, for example, there's kids with gambling addictions or alcohol, drugs, all those sorts of things. How do you make sure that money goes to them at the right time? Any thoughts there?
Well, I think at the right time, something that really comes up often in conversations when we're talking about estate planning with our clients, because particularly with children, what is the right age that they should be entitled to their inheritance? Of course, the legal age is 18, but these days a lot of people prefer to put in an older age when they think their child will be more responsible, experienced, confident, etc. So whether that be 25, 21, 25, 30, we usually go for around 25. I've seen I've seen older than 30, 35, 40, but I think that's about pushing the barrow a bit unfair. But that's a really important one, because who would want their 18-year-old plus 1 day child coming into a large amount of money in their own name? That's not a great idea by anyone's, I think, imagination.
Well, it would have been when I was 18, but
It would have been a good idea for you. You were on the receiving end, but not everyone else.
no, that's right. No, but you're absolutely right. It's yes, more and more we're seeing into their 30s, aren't we? That people are saying, by that stage, because kids don't get married until much later now. When certainly when I was growing up, people probably got married at an earlier age. They had more maturity at an early age.
Yeah.
These days, people have a lot more freedom, travel, and so on. Now, number 8 is what I call the leaky funnel syndrome. And that's all about inadequate planning. May mean that the tax department, banks, creditors, business partners, and so on may drain the pond before your loved ones are able to turn up and have a drink. Meaning, if you don't structure all your stuff properly, everyone else will be in the queue before your family. And so you got to ask yourself the question: who's more important? Your wife, your children, or your spouse? Sorry, your children, or the tax department and the banks. And for my money, I'd want to make sure my family was in front of them in the queue. So, and there are ways, aren't there, Juanita, that you can make sure that part of your estate can go directly to your your children, your loved ones, your spouse, and so on. Whereas if it goes into the estate, you might want to explain how the first thing that happens in an estate is that all debts must be paid.
Yeah, correct? That's right. So,
and then it's distributed.
Yeah, correct. And that's particularly so with things like superannuation and life insurance, where certain discussions need to be had about what's the best way to funnel those funds. Another one that I would probably add to that, which might seem strange seeing on a lawyer, is lawyers, because if you don't put the right estate planning in place and there eventuates a legal dispute after your death, then quite potentially a lot of money will be drained from your estate, but also for those individuals in sorting that mess out. So that's another one to add on the list.
Yeah, it's it's the whole concept is make sure you've got your planning in place so that your family, number one, are the ones that are protected. The lawyers, obviously, Juanita, for you'd want to make sure you're paid, but just to make sure that by the time what's left over for your family, by the time everyone else is paid, make sure you've really protected your family. And as we all know, you can do that through superannuations, through trusts, through joint ownership of assets, and all those sorts of things. And this is where you really need to. It's where the lawyers earn their money. Excuse me, because part of their process will be to make sure that all your wealth is set up in such a way that it's protected as much as possible for the next generation.
And I think this is also where we it's really important to pull in what do you call it, Mark? Not the A team. That's what I always think. The your team,
tactical team,
your tactical team of advisors, because certainly accountants and financial planners pay a big part in this particular issue here.
Yeah. Okay. Number 9, the invincibility delusion, and this sort of ties in a little bit with the deferral dilemma, which was the first one. But a lot of times people feel invincible, and that's one of the main reasons people don't get this started. Is they always think, bad things are going to happen to the other guy. That we're bulletproof, time's on our side, and then the reality is most people death comes as a surprise. It's not you don't get warning. It's not planned. We're not invincible, and things do happen, and all of a sudden you're gone, and you need to make sure that all the stuff that you need to have in place is in place. And I'm not sure if there's much more to say about that, but it's in there because, as number 9, because it's just such a big reason that people don't take action.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, but also keeping in mind it's not only death we're talking about, it's loss of capacity as well. So sure. Exactly as it says on my little list here, once that happens, it is too late. So it just needs to be addressed. So you're absolutely right. It ties in with number 1, not on the top of everyone's list of fun things to do, but it's a must do.
That's right. Okay, number 10. So, as time goes on, this is
Mm.
less easy to remember who Anna Nicole was. But number
Yeah.
10 is the Anna Nicole syndrome.
Yes,
For
I
those that
remember
need a
Anna
history
Nicole.
lesson, Anna Nicole Smith was a playmate, centerfold or something like that, wasn't she? And she, or penthouse or something. And she married Howard somebody or other who was like 90 something years old, some Texan billionaire. And this girl was like 21 years old, centerfold. And obviously the billionaire was very excited to be dating a centerfold, and he changed his will, and all his sons are lining up going, Dad, what's going on here?
Mm.
But when one spouse dies or separates, the remaining partner may be at risk from unwise and economically unsound new relationships. And, I'm going to tell you, I've actually seen this in real life as well. The emotional, one of my clients, let's say in the last few years, his wife passed away, and he actually got caught in a dating scam. This guy, lovely guy, lonely as all hell after his wife died, and he fell for one of the dating scams. They managed to skim a whole lot of money out of his account before his kids turned up and said, "Hey, Dad, what's going on here?" So the whole loneliness and what happens when one spouse dies, I mean, it is an issue, and we need to just make sure that I guess the wealth of the family is protected against unwise decisions when one partner goes and the other person is suffering bereavement, loneliness, emotional paralysis, and all the logic goes out the window while they're grieving.
It's quite a sad story. I think everyone accepts that people want to be happy going forward and enter a new relationship potentially, but people should be aware of at what stage of that relationship does that new partner start having rights to your assets. That's really, really important. And often if someone's entering that relationship, they genuinely want their estate to stay with their children or their family at that point in time. And, it's a rolling feast, isn't it? But certainly probably one takeaway from that is that de facto partners certainly do have rights. And what is a de facto partner? That's a whole new topic.
It's a whole new topic, and that's why you guys invented binding financial arrangements. Is that right?
That's my family routine, yes. That's right.
Not you, the other guys. That's right. Hey, look, the final one, we've just got a couple of minutes to go, and as usual, we're not getting through the list. There's a whole lot of other things. But the number 11 is the beneficiary bungle. Now, I'm going to stick my hand up and admit to being guilty of this one. After marriage, I forgot to change the beneficiary on my life insurance policy and thought I'd nominated both my children to be beneficiaries. And 2 years later, after the very messy divorce and financial disaster settlement, I found out that my ex-spouse was still the beneficiary of my life insurance policy, which was always intended for my children. So with retirement funds, superannuation funds, life insurance, and all those sorts of things, making sure you don't bungle up who the beneficiary is on any of your financial documents can just have terrible consequences if you don't check and plan, which really comes out as part of the due diligence that you guys do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this sort of comes back to getting the right advice on what the effect of different beneficiaries might be, particularly tax-wise. Comes back to doing those homemade documents, because that can be fraught with error if the wrong beneficiary description's put in there. So again, you might think it's a far-fetched possibility, but it is not.
No. It pained me to admit my mistake there, but anyway, anyone can make a mistake.
We always talk about when you should review these things: marriage, divorce, buying a property, buying a business, having children. That's exactly why. You're a real life example.
I'm a walking, talking real life example. Anyway, look, our time's up this week, but next week I'd like to keep going with some of the strengths that people have that we can reinforce, some of the obstacles that need to be looked at, and a bit of a checklist, a scorecard for people to go through just to see how they sit themselves. So once again, Juanita, thank you very much for your time today. It's been great chatting with you, and thanks for allowing me the week off last week. And we'll catch up with everyone again next week. Look forward to seeing you then.
Thanks, Simon.